Welcome, my dear students. This is a new episode of biology. Today we will talk about traits, genes, and alleles. The key concept for this lesson is genes encode proteins. Genes have the codes for proteins that produce a diverse range of traits and the characteristics of the organism. The main ideas: number one, the same gene can have many versions. Yes, for sure. And the second one, genes influence the development of traits. Let's start. The same gene can have many versions. As you have learned before, Mendel's discrete units of heredity are now called genes. But what are genes? You can think of a gene as a piece of DNA that provides a set of instructions or informations to a cell to make a certain protein. This definition is not precise to the point, but it gives you the main idea. Then we come to another term named locus. Each gene has a locus. Locus is a specific position on a pair of homologous chromosomes. Just as a house is a physical structure and the address tells where that house is located, you can think of the locus as the address that tells where a gene is located on a chromosome. So locus is a specific position on a pair of homologous chromosomes. So this is the location of the gene on the homologous chromosomes. What about alleles? Most genes exist in many forms. In Mendel's experiments, the effects of these different forms were easy to see. Yes, yellow or green color, round or wrinkled seeds. But what is an allele? An allele is any of the alternative forms of a gene that may occur at a specific locus. Your cells have two alleles for each gene, one on each of the homologous chromosomes on which the locus for that gene is found. Each parent gives one allele, yes, for sure. The two alleles may be the same or they may be different. Then we have two terms here. The first one, homozygous alleles. Homo means similar. The term homozygous describes two of the same alleles at a specific locus. So they are the same alleles at a specific locus. Both might code for the flowers, white flowers or wrinkled seeds, for example. So these are called homozygous alleles. They are the same alleles at a specific locus for the homologous chromosomes. What about heterozygous alleles? Heterozygous describes two different alleles at a specific locus. So one might be for the wrinkled seeds, while the second one is for the round seeds, or one might code for white flowers and the other might code for purple flowers, as you can see. You may have learned about the Human Genome Project. The word genome, what does it mean? A genome is all of an organism's genetic material. All of the organism's genetic material is named genome. The goal of this Human Genome Project, its goal was to find out the sequence of the 3 billion nucleotide pairs that make up a human's genome. You have a unique genome that determines all of your traits unless you have an identical twin. So in this case, he also have the same genome. Some of your traits, such as the eye color or the color of your eyes, it can be seen. But what about the exact chemical makeup of your eyeball? It cannot be seen. Then what is a genotype? In genetics, we often focus on a single trait or a set of traits. A genome is all of the organism's genes. Yes, we already knew this, but a genotype refers to the genetic makeup of a specific set of genes. A genotype refers to the genetic makeup of a specific set of genes. The genotype, we are talking about the genes. The genotype of a pea plant includes both of the genes that code for the flower color, even if one of these genes is masked. Then what about phenotype? In contrast, a phenotype is the physical characteristics or traits of an individual organism. A pea plant with purple flowers has a phenotype for purple flowers. So we can think of a phenotype as the physical appearance or the physical characteristics that we can see, but the genotype, these are the genes of the organism. The pea plant might have a hidden gene for white flowers. This would be seen in or will be available in the genotype, but that doesn't matter in its phenotype. Okay, what about dominant and recessive alleles? If an organism is heterozygous for a trait, as we said, which allele will be expressed? That is, if a plant has one allele for purple flowers and one allele for white flowers, which one of them, which color will the flower be? As Mendel learned, one allele may be dominant and the other is recessive, or one allele may be dominant over another allele. So a dominant allele is one allele that is expressed when two different alleles or two dominant alleles are present. So if here we have, this is the genotype, we have one gene that codes for round seeds, the other one for wrinkled seeds, but the round is the dominant. So the phenotype will be round seeds. If the dominant allele will be expressed if one or two alleles are dominant or present. What about recessive alleles? A recessive allele is the allele that is expressed only when the two copies are present. So for the recessive trait or the recessive allele to be expressed, we need the two alleles to be present. As you can see here, this is the genotype. We have both wrinkled seeds. This is the trait for wrinkled seeds. So in this case, the phenotype will be wrinkled seeds. In Mendel's experiments, the allele for purple flowers was dominant to the allele for white flowers. All of F1 plants, the first filial, were purple, even though they had only one allele for purple flower. So this proves what we said. Only one allele or the two alleles dominant present, so it will appear to the phenotype, or it will be expressed. Sometimes the word dominant is misunderstood. This is very important. A dominant allele is not necessarily better or stronger than the recessive allele. Also, a dominant allele does not necessarily occur most often in the population. An allele is dominant in a heterozygous or a heterozygote simply because it is expressed and the other allele is not. And here is a case to prove this. The dominant allele is not the stronger or the better one, and it does not happen most often or more often than the recessive allele. There is a case named polydactyly. Polydactyly means that the condition of having more than the typical number of fingers or toes. As you can see the picture to the left, this is 6 toes, not 5. And in the picture to the right, this man both hands have 6 digits or 6 fingers. The allele for polydactyly is dominant. Can you imagine this? So this is not the stronger one, and this is not the one that occurs more often. Alleles are often expressed on paper with individual letters. An organism's genotype for a trait can be shown with 2 letters. So the genotype can be expressed as 2 letters, 1 letter per allele. Uppercase letters are used for dominant alleles, while lowercase letters are used for recessive alleles. So now the upper and lowercase letters are very important. Pay attention, please. For example, the dominant allele for height in pea plants is written as T capital for tall. So the recessive allele for short plants will be written as T small, the same letter, different lowercase than uppercase. A plant's genotype might be homozygous dominant. Homozygous means similar, T capital, T capital. Heterozygous, T capital, T small. This is like they are different. Or homozygous recessive. This is the third case, T small, T small. Because some alleles are dominant over others, 2 genotypes can produce the dominant phenotype. For example, smooth pods and constricted pods in pea plants are these the phenotypes. The smooth pod is the one that is like it have air inside, or this is the smooth one. Constricted one is the one that is shrinked. These are phenotypes. I can see them with my own eyes. What about the genotype? Let's see. A plant with smooth pods could have a homozygous dominant, both the alleles are dominant, S capital, or heterozygous, S capital and S small genotype. In contrast, the plant with constricted or compressed pods, this is the recessive trait, so both the alleles must be recessive. Could have only a homozygous recessive genotype small. What actually makes one allele dominant over another? This answer is very complicated because it depends on the nature of the protein that is made or that is not made. Let's look at a fairly simple example. Pigment gives cells a color. So if P capital directs flower cells to make the pigment, the flower may look purple, but P small directs the cells not to make pigment, the flower looks white. So P capital codes for the pigment to be present, but P small codes for nothing, the absence of pigment. In this case, the result, P capital has to be dominant, even if the flower has only one P capital allele, P capital, P small, this is heterozygous. That one allele tells its cells to make pigment and the flower has a color. The flower pigment is only one example, but many factors make one allele dominant over another. As you know, most plants are not simply tall or short. Most flowers are not just white or purple. Most traits occur in a range. Other factors also affect the traits. A lack of sunshine or vital nutrients could stunt or stop a plant's growth. How does genetics account for these issues? Mendel, when he studied traits that follow simple dominant recessive patterns of inheritance, and each trait was the result of a single gene. But in general, the inheritance is much more complex. Most alleles are not simply dominant or recessive. Some alleles are co-dominant. Many traits are influenced by multiple genes. The environment also interacts with genes and affects their expression. Thank you guys and see you in the next episode.